Welcome to this explainer. Okay, I want you to start off by trying something that's actually kind of difficult. I want you to imagine a world completely devoid of written words. No books sitting on your shelf, no news feed scrolling on your phone, no contracts signing away your life, and most importantly, no written history whatsoever. In this world, the very second a word leaves your mouth, it just disappears into thin air. That was the reality for the vast majority of human existence.
But think about the sheer complications that would cause. Kings could make grand promises, merchants could orchestrate massive trades of goods, and farmers could try to predict their crop yields. But once those agreements were spoken out loud, they relied purely on human memory. If someone forgot or maybe disagreed later on, there was absolutely no record. So as early societies started expanding, they ran into a monumental question. How do you make a promise, a trade, or a law last beyond the limits of spoken memory?
Section 1, the problem of memory.
All right, let's dive right into this, because the invention of writing wasn't born out of some sudden desire to write poetry or create art. It was, at its very core, a highly practical, technological solution to a massive administrative crisis. As ancient cities grew and population swelled, the sheer volume of information just became way too much for any one human brain to hold. We are talking about the foundation of complex society here. Look at these needs: farmers producing massive amounts of food, merchants coordinating trade, temples collecting resources, and governments desperately needing to distribute supplies. A temple scribe might need to remember exactly how much beer or bread was given out on a random Tuesday. A ruler needed precise records of taxes and military supplies. Simply remembering it all, literally impossible. This created a powerful new need, a technology to preserve information.
Section 2, Cuneiform, the first paperwork.
So to see how humanity actually solved this problem of memory, we have to travel to southern Mesopotamia, in what is now modern-day Iraq, straight to the ancient Sumerian cities, because this is where one of the world's earliest known writing systems was born. And as you can see on the timeline, there was this rapid, almost parallel emergence of these brilliant systems globally. Around 3250 BCE, hieroglyphs begin to emerge in Egypt. And then, almost simultaneously, around 3200 BCE, cuneiform emerges in Sumer. Both of these systems sprang up to record goods, manage taxes, and document royal achievements. By 1900 BCE, the system was so incredibly robust that Assyrian merchants were using it to facilitate complex, long-distance trade.
Let's move on and see how this actually builds. Early on, writing was literally just pictures. A symbol looked exactly like the grain or the animal it represented. But over time, scribes realized drawing tiny pictures was just way too slow. So they began pressing a specially cut reed stylus into soft clay, which created this series of small, abstract, wedge-shaped marks. That's actually where the name comes from, by the way. Cuneiform is from a Latin word meaning wedge-shaped. Finally, they would leave that soft clay out to dry in the hot sun, instantly creating a highly durable physical record. What's absolutely fascinating to me is how relatable all of this is. These clay tablets might look like dusty museum artifacts to us today, but they were essentially the business emails and spreadsheets of the ancient Near East. They tracked grain and livestock, trade agreements, and workers' rations. Thousands of these tablets survived purely because baked clay happens to last for millennia. We even have records of Assyrian merchants communicating about long-distance commerce between Mesopotamia and Anatolia. It was a massive, game-changing administrative revolution. Section 3. Hieroglyphs, Egypt's sacred carvings. Meanwhile, far to the west, along the flow of the Nile River, another incredibly complex civilization was organizing its own resources and developing its own genius solution to the problem of memory. We're talking, of course, about Egyptian hieroglyphs. The word itself comes from Greek, commonly translating to sacred carvings. Now, when you look at hieroglyphs, you see highly recognizable natural objects, right? Birds, animals, plants, and tools. But it is vital to understand that these beautiful images were not just simple pictures. They represented specific sounds, distinct words, and incredibly complex ideas. It was a fully sophisticated writing system, capable of expressing the entirety of the ancient Egyptian spoken language. And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer diversity of human innovation. We have two distinct civilizations achieving the exact same revolution. Just look at the contrast here. Mesopotamia's cuneiform was impressed into soft clay, creating abstract wedge-shaped marks, born heavily out of everyday administrative needs. Egypt's hieroglyphs, on the other hand, were often carved into hard stone or vividly painted, maintaining the look of recognizable objects, with a really heavy early focus on the sacred, the monumental, and the royal. Two completely different methods, but the exact same result, transforming temporary speech into something beautifully permanent. Now, it's actually a huge misconception to think Egyptians only wrote on giant stone temples for pharaohs and gods. While those tombs did carry grand messages meant for the afterlife, the Egyptians also developed much faster handwritten forms of their script, called hieratic and later demotic. These scripts were used on a daily basis to record everyday life. We're talking wills, tax receipts, business transactions, personal letters, and literature. They were just as focused on daily administration as they were on the divine.
Section 4. Breaking the Hieroglyph Code.
But as history marched on, something truly tragic happened. Empires fell, languages shifted, and a massive historical mystery was born. Over the centuries, the ability to read the Egyptian code was completely lost. Think about the weight of that for a second. The monuments went silent. An entire civilization had meticulously recorded its beliefs, its kings, its daily struggles, and its triumphs, leaving them carved in stone for eternity. But for hundreds of years, no human being on Earth knew what any of it meant. The symbols were just mysterious, unreadable pictures to anyone who looked at them. That is until 1799. During a military campaign in Egypt, French soldiers made a startling discovery near the town of Rashid, which Europeans called Rosetta. They found a stone slab that contained the exact same royal decree written 3 times, in 3 totally different scripts. It was written in hieroglyphic and demotic, which were both completely unreadable at the time. And crucially, it was written in Greek. And this is the kicker. Greek was known. It could already be read. This was literally the ultimate locked room mystery finally getting a key. Scholars could now compare a known language directly with the mysterious Egyptian scripts. So the crucial point is what happened next. It took years of agonizing, frustrating study, but in 1822, a French scholar named Jean-François Champollion made a massive breakthrough. He proved that Egyptian hieroglyphs weren't just symbols of vague ideas. They actually represented the specific sounds of the spoken language. He completely unlocked the structure of ancient Egyptian writing. And suddenly, the names of pharaohs could be identified, complex religious texts could be translated, and the silent monuments of Egypt began to speak their incredible stories once again.
Section 5. Humanity learns to remember.
This brings us to the ultimate takeaway here. Writing did so much more than just allow a merchant to track a delivery of grain or a king to boast about a battlefield victory. It literally changed the very nature of human civilization. The wheel changed how we moved, right? And fire changed how we survived. But writing gave us a durable memory. Through clay tablets and carved stones, we have the histories of rulers, the daily administrative gripes of scribes, the sacred texts of priests, the contracts of merchants, and the deeply personal, relatable stories of ancient families. Writing allowed a civilization to speak not just to its immediate neighbors, but to us, thousands of years in the future. Those very first scribes pressing reeds into wet clay probably thought they were just doing boring paperwork. They had zero clue they were creating recorded history. But because they wrote, we can still hear their voices today. Which leaves us with a fascinating question to ponder as we wrap up this explainer. In our modern era of digital messages and endless data, what will your marks on the world say to the people reading them thousands of years from now? Thanks so much for joining me on this journey, and keep exploring.